Hey, it's the Comics Kid 2099, and I'm here to talk about something I usually don't talk about, and that is Star Trek. Recently, I watched a video from the Ask the Treksperts segment of the Geekvolution people, and both of them, both Captain Logan and Sarah, they mentioned that they didn't think that a Star Trek Academy series could work. And I respectfully disagree, and I'd like to take this video to talk about why I think a Star Trek Academy series could have worked in the past. I don't think it would work so well now, but I definitely think at some point in the past it could have worked, maybe as a somewhat short series compared to the other Star Trek shows. So, here we go. One complaint that both Captain Logan and Sarah brought up in their video is that the Star Trek Academy is on Earth, and Earth is a utopia, so you can't really have conflict in a series or even an episode if you're on a utopia. And that's true. You really can't have conflict on a utopia unless you find out that it's not really a utopia. I would solve that by saying that if you are going to do a Star Trek Academy series, have it be set after the very last Stardate that we saw in the Prime continuity, and say that the Federation is building a second academy on some other world. Bear with me for a minute. I looked this up on Wikipedia, and there are at least 34 prep schools for the military in the United States. That's for an area that's smaller than one planet, and there are 34 academies for military students. Starfleet Academy is much larger and spans many more planets than just one, and for some reason there's only one academy on one world. I always thought that was really strange, and I always thought if they were actually going to do a Starfleet Academy show, they could just build a second academy set on another planet. After all, maybe there's lots and lots of people coming in to become students, and going all the way to Earth might be really far for some people, and maybe this would hold some kind of strategic advantage for them. Who knows? In this hypothetical series that we're talking about, I would say put this new academy on a formerly hostile world. Something like maybe Cardassia. I don't really know a whole lot about Star Trek. I don't know what the political climate was between Cardassia and the Starfleet at the end of the Prime continuity, but I would have it on some kind of world where you could have lots of problems easily come up so that you could have the potential for plenty of stories to tell. In their video, Captain Logan and Sarah also mentioned that a series about high school students reading textbooks and taking tests wouldn't really be that interesting. And I definitely agree. A series about that would not be interesting. I don't think that a Starfleet Academy series has to be that thing. Think of other shows like the Harry Potter movies. Granted, Harry Potter was a series of movies, so it was a more limited number of stories that you're telling. But I think a Starfleet Academy series could be along those same lines. You have students, they're always running into trouble in this very odd and unusual place where lots of adventures can take place, and then you might have staff members who are also kind of part of this problem of adventures happening, and maybe they're helping the students fight these adventures, maybe they're trying to stop the student. The point is, when you have a series set in the 23rd, 24th century, it really doesn't have to be just students reading textbooks and taking tests. There's potential for a lot more that you could do in a series like this. One thing that I think would hurt this series would be, if you were going to do it, I think you should distance it away from the other existing shows set around this time. So I would say, don't bring in any characters from Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, or Voyager. Those shows, even the most recent one, ended almost 10 years ago. And those characters, those actors, they're all older now. I guess in theory you could say that the characters are aging as well, since Star Trek is done in real time. But I think that this would be a great time to just build new characters, establish new storylines. Not a whole lot of people are clamoring to see the Doctor from Voyager come back in a cameo, I don't think. The problem with this would be building new characters and stories that are interesting. The pro about using a crossover from, say, Deep Space Nine is that that's a character who's already been established, who's already been built, and without doing any work at all, you can just pull them in for a story, and a lot of the work has been done for you. If you're not using any of these established characters, you're creating more work for yourself to do. And while that could be a problem, I think trying to connect yourself to a show that's over 10 years canceled could also potentially be a problem. Personally, I would just rather see a series set in this world that doesn't actually try to cross over with some shows that have been canceled for a decade. I said earlier that this series could have been done before the Star Trek 2009 film. I think potentially you could do it now, although I'm not really sure if the networks would really want to do a series set in the original continuity after we have a series of movies that are set in a brand new continuity. So in that regard, I agree with Captain Logan and Sarah about that. If you're going to do a series like this, maybe you could have it spinning out of the events of the 2009 Star Trek movie. In that film, we found out that in the Prime continuity, Romulus exploded. Maybe this has ramifications all across Starfleet and the rest of the galaxy. How would this affect a slew of students who are coming into Starfleet? A planet, a hostile planet mind you, exploding, that's a game changer. How would this affect the way that students are taught? Would Starfleet become much more of a political strong-arm organization that's trying to move across the galaxy now that one of their enemies has been taken out? I really don't know, but that'd be an interesting thing to attack. In fact, this series would be one of the best places to tackle that, I think. You know, educating students on things that are maybe not really something you should be educating them on. Do the teachers agree with these policies? What do the students think? Stuff like that could be really interesting over the long term. A series about a Starfleet Academy wouldn't have to be only about the students, I think. I mentioned Harry Potter earlier, and one thing that I kind of like about the Harry Potter stories is that you get to see some of the teachers also and kind of how they relate to this larger world. In a Starfleet Academy series, you could have a few students who are prominent, but you could also have a few teachers who are prominent. Maybe these teachers weren't really cut out to be officers on a starship for one reason or another, but they're really good at being teachers. And I'm not downplaying being a teacher, but maybe in this world, some of these characters might look down on this occupation and they might wish they could have been officers on a starship, but for one reason or another, they couldn't be. That'd also be something interesting to tackle. This has been really kind of a short video, and I think since I'm not a huge fan of Star Trek, I couldn't really delve as deep into this as maybe I would have liked. I'm sure there are all kinds of problems with what I've just talked about, things that an actual Trekkie could point at and say, yeah, that's wrong, and that's wrong, but I think just as a casual Trek fan, there's not inherently anything wrong with the premise of doing a Starfleet Academy series. Maybe there is something wrong with it that I'm just not thinking about, and if there is, I'd like to see your feedback in the comments below. Having said that, I'm the Comics Kid 2099, and today, I think I'm going to boldly go where no man has gone before. I'll see you next time.